Mic check 1, 2, party peoples of the interwebs. We're doing another evening vlog. It's not a car vlog, it's a home office vlog. Viva Frei, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler. For those of you who might be watching me for the first time, yesterday I broke the news that Roger Ver, aka Bitcoin Jesus, because of his early involvement in promoting Bitcoin, his appeal in Spain, appealing his extradition to the United States, where he faces over a century in jail for alleged tax evasion and mail fraud, his appeal of the extradition was dismissed by the Spanish courts. Someone has entered the house. Now, I don't speak Spanish very well, and I had to work on an AI translation summary of the Spanish decision, which I did, which we're going to get to in a second. But for those of you who may not know who Bitcoin Jesus is, I had him on for an interview. Robert Barnes and I have been talking at length about this story during our Sunday night Viva and Barnes Law Extravaganza Sunday night show. Bitcoin Jesus, involved in the Bitcoin promotion and movement early on, one of the most vocal proponents of Bitcoin decentralized financial autonomy from the government. The government doesn't like that. But Bitcoin Jesus, Roger Ver himself, has had his run-in with the lawfare system, and it goes back nearly 20 years. 1999, he ran for the Libertarian Party, and he was at a debate where he was talking about how, in his view, the ATF are murderers of children because of what they did in Waco, which was literally murdering of children when they ran down the house with David Koresh, set the place on fire, and killed many, many children. Roger Ver, in this debate, condemns, labels the ATF as murderers of children. There were ATF members in the crowd who then swiftly went after Roger Ver for, get this, unlawful or unlicensed selling, reselling of firecrackers, pest control firecrackers. They prosecuted him for that, and he actually pleaded and went to jail for 10 months. Now, just bear in mind, Roger Ver was buying these firecrackers. They're called pest control firecrackers. I forget what they're called exactly. From Cabela's online. Cabela's was selling them without a permit, without a license. He was reselling them online so that he could make a few bucks as a young person, entrepreneur. He was prosecuted for that because the ATF literally didn't like what he said about them during that libertarian debate. At some point in his life, he decides he needs to flee America because of the lawfare persecution of him, his companies, his family members. He leaves in 2014, abandons his citizenship, and a decade later, the IRS indicts him, or he gets indicted by the DOJ for alleged tax evasion because when he left and abandoned his citizenship in 2014, there was something of exit tax that he was supposed to pay on his net worth. And they alleged that he concealed some of his Bitcoin assets, that he concealed later transfers of Bitcoin assets in 2017, 3 years after he had left the country and renounced his citizenship. The IRS argues that this was fraudulent concealment of monies he had to pay. Bear in mind, apparently, back in 2014, the global transaction level of Bitcoin was nowhere near what it is today, in the tens of millions at that. The IRS claims that he withheld or didn't pay $48 million in taxes because of alleged Bitcoin transactions 3 years after he left the country and renounced his citizenship. He was indicted. They are looking for over 100 years in jail because of this. Now, you read through the indictment, and basically the allegations are that he did not disclose to his accountants Bitcoin transactions, even though these were all disclosed, apparently, the Bitcoin holdings. The IRS never went after any civil remedies. They didn't try to have him be declared owing back taxes paid with penalties, et cetera, et cetera. They, in fact, never told him exactly how much he owes, despite, according to him, if you watch the interview, multiple requests to say, hey, IRS, how much do I owe you? I've got a massive team here of accountants, former prosecutors. Just tell me what I owe, and we'll argue it over if we disagree. The IRS never tells Bitcoin Jesus Roger Ver what he owes. A decade later, they indict him in an indictment which is, I won't say farcical on its face, but they are retroactively declaring that he had to pay taxes on Bitcoin transactions when back in 2014, there was no guidance on how to treat Bitcoin as an asset, as a security for the purposes of capital gains. There was no guidance. Nobody knew what to do. If you take Roger Ver at his word, he was seeking that guidance. He had a massive team to make sure that he would pay what taxes he owed because he had already been the victim of lawfare to the point where he had to flee the country. He's like, I want to do this all proper by the book. Okay. By the way, they also violated solicitor-client privilege because when they indicted Roger Ver, they raided his lawyers' offices. They raided his accountants' offices. They seized otherwise privileged communications between Roger and his professionals and his attorneys. But set all that aside. Roger Ver filed a motion to oppose the extradition. He had appealed the initial refusal. He's out on bail or out of prison in Spain, but under certain house conditions where he has to check in with court every other day, or if not every day. And his appeal was dismissed. Now, I don't speak Spanish, people, and I'll show you what this judgment looks like in Spanish, and then you'll understand why we need AI that is produced by a member of our locals community in Cryptis. This is the decision, or at least one page of it. Antecedentes procesales. Primero, por la sección segunda de la Sala de lo Penal de la Audiencia Nacional, se dictó otro, that's the number here. I could piece together some of this because whatever looks close enough to French, I think I can figure out. But the bottom line, I don't speak Spanish, so I need to get an AI translation summary of the decision. We'll walk through it as I explain to you what happens in this case. From Encryptis, a member of our locals community, self-proclaimed AI guru, I build AI tools, simple and complex. Tag me if you need something analyzed or built. So check this out. This is the summary by AI, and I love the fact that the AI program, as crafted by Encryptis, can understand the importance of this case. It says, in a landmark decision that could set a precedent for future cases involving cryptocurrency-related crimes, Spain's Audiencia Nacional has dismissed the appeal filed by Roger Keith Vare, a prominent figure in the Bitcoin community, against his extradition to the United States. The ruling, delivered by the plenary of the Criminal Chamber of February 4, 2025, reaffirms an earlier decision to extradite Vare to face multiple charges of tax fraud and financial crimes. The development marks a significant chapter in the international legal pursuit of financial misconduct in the digital age. Then we have the summary of the case, which I already gave you, but what's very interesting here are the arguments raised by Roger on appeal and how they were summarily dismissed by the Spanish court. There is the possibility of going to the higher constitutional court to even overturn this case. Unlikely, I am told that is, but these are the arguments that he raised. He argued that it violated the legal procedures and rights. What does that mean? The defense argued that the extradition violated Roger Vere's fundamental rights, including his right to a fair trial, the right to effective judicial protection, and the principle of legal certainty. They claimed that at the time of the alleged offenses, particularly in 2014, there was no clear guidance from the IRS regarding the taxation of cryptocurrencies. They cited an opinion by the U.S. tax expert Jason Schwartz, who argued that clear tax regulations on Bitcoin were not established until 2019. The lack of double criminality. The defense contended that the crimes Vare is accused of do not have an equivalent under Spanish law, a requirement known as double criminality for extradition cases. Specifically, they argued that the U.S. expatriation tax, which taxes the loss of citizenship, has no direct counterpart in Spain, where taxes typically focus on changes in residency rather than nationality. Now, the political persecution claim. Roger Ver claims he's being politically persecuted, specifically targeted because of the Bitcoin nature of this case. It did come under the Biden regime when there was something of a war on anyone who wanted to be independent from the government or have transactions that were not subject to government surveillance. And then item 4, concerns over U.S. legal compliance with the principle of specialty. Vere's legal team expressed concerns that the U.S. authorities might violate the principle of specialty. I'm not sure if that's the exact legal term or some AI sort of summary of it, but bottom line, which prohibits prosecuting an extradited individual for crimes other than those specified in the extradition request. So you have 4 bases from which they appealed, and you'll see how they were all summarily dismissed. Basically, they say the adherence to international legal standards. The court came to the conclusion that Roger Ver had not yet been convicted, and if he's in fact innocent, he can claim his innocence and prove his innocence in a court of law in America, although they have to prove guilt. Whatever, we've gotten the cart in front of the horse, so to speak, but they dismissed the first argument outright. On the second argument of the existence of double criminality, the court affirmed that the alleged tax offenses, including the concealment of assets and fraudulent tax declarations, alleged, would constitute crimes under both U.S. and Spanish law. Thus, the criteria is satisfied. They can extradite him for that. As relates to the claim that this was a political persecution, the court outright rejects the claim that this was politically motivated, and no need for additional guarantees from the U.S. on the indictment, because Spain says we have such a trusting relationship with American authorities that they will not add on additional charges that were not included in the original indictment pursuant to which Roger Ver was extradited. So yeah, we get along so well with the United States, which might be exactly why the United States waited until Roger Ver was in Spain before having him arrested, because very few other countries might have actually extradited Roger Ver for these alleged crimes. A little bit of forum shopping, as Roger Ver explained. But the bottom line, you raised 4 arguments, we rejected your 4 arguments, and now you are free to be extradited to America to be locked up for the rest of your life because of alleged unpaid taxes on cryptocurrency for which there was no guidance at the time you left the country. So that is the decision, people. Roger Ver is on the cusp of being extradited to America, unless he gets a pardon, unless Pam Bondi gets involved and drops the charges. Roger Ver was on InfoWars today talking about about how he never wanted to leave the country in the first place. He was chased out because of lawfare, and if it were to become a safe country for him to move back to, he would love to come back to America because he considers himself to be America by blood. So that is the summary of where things lie with Roger Ver. He is free to be extradited at any minute now. At literally any moment, there is a potential appeal to the Constitutional Court of Spain, which could, in theory, potentially overturn this, but it doesn't look very likely at all, to put it mildly. To be continued, we'll see where this goes. I have now gotten sort of intellectually, legally, and emotionally invested in the outcome of this particular judicial saga, much like I got involved and emotionally invested with the January 6th prisoners, who I thought were persecuted victims from the get-go. We'll see where it goes. If you like what I do, make sure to like, share, subscribe, turn on notifications. Most importantly, eat healthy, exercise, sunlight, talk to people in real life, and now you know your vlog. Peace out, peeps. Ooh, don't touch it. Don't touch that lens because it gets dirty. Booyah!
Can you imagine what America would be like today if Kamala had won? Everybody would be looking to flee America. They'd be terrified of the lawfare that was coming to them. And so, like, the other day, I think Elon Musk was a little bit confused, saying that, oh, Roger left America. I didn't leave America. I was driven out of America by the lawfare. I absolutely never would have dreamed of leaving America if they hadn't been prosecuting me for absolute nonsense because of the political views I had and because of the effectiveness I had at spreading those ideas. And so this needs to come to an end. And now we have probably certainly the best chance in my lifetime to do this, and maybe one of the best chances ever to bring it into the lawfare and make America great again. The way we make America great again is we end the deep state, we get rid of all these politicians that are controlling everybody's lives, and set people free again in America. That's how we make it great again, and that's what's happening right now. And I want to be an even bigger part of it than I am already. Nothing would make me happier to play an even bigger role in making America great again, and helping people like President Trump and Elon Musk and everybody else there. This is really an amazing chance for the entire world to have an American Renaissance, which the entire world is, riding on America's shoulders here. America's carrying the entire world. Let's do this for America. Let's do this for the whole world. America's the one that can do it, and I want to help.